what do we put for security? What is the cost that we would consider that would be worth security for our businesses and our homes, that we would do away with what has been working perfectly well now? And I just, if you throw that in there, then where is the difference in contracting this out compared to keeping what you've got and try to raise the funds in another way or cut the budget in another direction to remain? Because if you take them out of the community, what is that going to look like? How long is it going to take for someone to come to a call? Is that going to change? And that's my question. Yeah. And it's the reason because there was a story on the news here recently about dissolving an area, and it took a longer time for them to come to a call. And by that time, everybody was involved in the fight. So where is the difference? I mean, I apologize that this may have already been answered, and I did come in late. I had another appointment, but it was very nerve-wracking to not figure out what would you give to have the security and the safety that's already now, given at the times that we live in and the adversity that's in this community.
Yeah, to answer your question directly, I can't because it's all situation-driven. If we had two folks on duty here in town and, like I say, one took someone to Mercy for a mental crisis, he's gone. If the other guy is on his way to Batavia with a domestic violence offender, he's gone. So certainly, we may have to wait a little bit longer for Pierce or a sheriff or Union Township to get up here. I mean, they would, and they would do the best they can.
But is the village of Amelia willing to deal with that and the consequences of that?
Like I say, I know they're going to do the best, but just as if they were tied up, I would be sending them. I mean, I sent cars in Bethel down to Felicity and beyond simply because they said, "Hey, we need help." That we're on the way. So it's a good teamwork, but I just can't give you a solid answer. I guess it's more of a rhetorical question for council.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, we're seeing you back there. Are you talking about the Sheriff's Department's coverage?
Yeah,
or are you talking about the Amelia Police Department?
I'm talking about the Amelia Police Department. If you contract this out to the Sheriff's Department, where is the difference that would consider, if you save them a little bit, and that's fine, is that worth not having the coverage that we have now? Is that worth, I mean, we run that and we give everything away, but we have vandalism every week at Grace and Mercy, busting out windows. Whether it be kids or adults, doesn't matter, but the point of it is, how do you decrease in something that you need to actually increase in and say that we're going to survive as a village, or businesses are going to be safe?
That's actually the whole point. That's actually the entire point. Thank you for bringing it out. Thank you very much. The entire point is that we went to the voters and said we need to increase the police department for the very reasons that you just discussed.
I would pay an extra $20 a month to be in a business or a resident and know that I've got the protection. Knowing
in 2010, 2 levies were put on the ballot, and they both failed.
I'll say put it back on the ballot.
The very thing that you just said, that's the reason we're here. Because the data that we have, is that the voters have spoken. They don't want to see any new taxes. So we're just exploring options. Everybody's
going to have to pay new taxes. We get our dollars to the government, and they give us change, and that's what it looks like. I had to throw it in there. Listen, I could talk a lot, but I would really consider what you have is working well. Why would you try to fix something that actually serves what it serves, and you need to increase in the protection, not decrease?
You're saying exactly what council is saying.
Thank you. I'm glad y'all not paid in, so y'all work it out.
Before we open the floor back up, the next item on the agenda is discussion from council. And if you don't mind waiting for a minute, we'll get to that section there, and then we'll open the floor for public. Okay. Anybody have any council members have input for questions?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks.
And at this time, I'd open the floor to discussion from council members regarding the content of the proposals that you have in front of you, and open the floor for your discussion and or questions, etc.
I know we all were passing around papers and stuff. It was not being disrespectful. We're just trying to, but on what you've given us, and I want to make sure that I'm looking at it correct, and I know you wanted, we all want to compare apples to apples. We don't want to compare apples to oranges. So if I'm looking at the papers that we received last week, I know unless y'all brought them with you may not have them. But for the Claremont County, the 5 deputy option for the calendar year 2012, if I'm reading this correctly, is $324,937.85. Okay, did everybody get that? $324,000. Now on the paper that we just got, that Kevin did up to run the Amelia Police Department as it is now, is $615,000.
That's estimated revenues.
Right.
That's estimated revenues, that's not cost.
Okay, so the cost is
Estimated cost is
$581. Okay, $581,318.89.
Estimated cost, if you look down there, and one thing I purposely did, being a pessimist, included some fringes with part-time officers they currently don't get, but who knows what could happen with the state budget, unionization, whatever. I put those numbers in to cover for a scenario like that.
Right.
Take $27,000 off the total, you're looking at $394 or so, $395 in wages once you get rid of the fringes for part-timers. On top of that, I included $20,000 for fuel and maintenance for 5 cruisers, $10,500 for training, debt service is $7,400, supplies and materials about $17,500, and various contractual services are $72,000, and other expenses of around $30,000. That all came up to the $581,320, let's call it.
Okay, my next question is, figured into any here are other issues that will be coming to light. Is that added into this for that?
There's no estimation for leave buyout, any additional premiums the village would have to pay, or actual costs for unemployment. There is at least one workers' comp case still sitting out there from 2 years ago that's still being arbitrated. Who knows what's going to happen with that one? The final number will be or anything. So those are not included in any of the numbers I've generated because, to be honest with you, I don't know. Especially the leave payouts, they change every pay period.
Renee, one thing you have to, on the sheriff's contract, you'll have to take that 20,000 fuel bill.
Right.
Add that to the three whatever.
Right.
The debt service, I believe, is for a cruiser.
It's Unit 19, the new one.
Yeah, so you'll still be paying that as well, so you would move that to it as well. I guess part of the contractual services is the dispatch fee.
Dispatch fee and legal counsel.
Yeah. So that would still remain currently as well, so that would be added to what we're paying to the sheriff's contract.
And all of the numbers I put into here, with the exception of the payroll up at top, which I relied on the chief, and the bills I've had to pay over the past 2 months came from the state's accounting system that the village uses. And everything is basically, this is what it may cost in 2012. Right now, the number I have for estimated revenues, that is based on the current appraisal by Claremont County. I believe next year, or the year after, sometime in the near future, Claremont County will be releasing a new appraisal. What I've heard so far is that appraisal is going to be between 3 to 5% lower than current values. How much of that decrease in value will translate in tax revenues, I don't know. It may remain the same because of the reduction factors. It may drop drastically.
Kevin, one question. The $324,000 that was, for the proposal for the sheriff, does that match, or does that match up with the 423? The proposal of Amelia running the business. Sort of apples to apples.
Yeah, you'd have to take out the clerk's salary for starts, and all the part-timers. Because the sheriff's proposal is looking strictly at, they gave us two options, 4 officers or 5 officers. And the one estimate I provided previously was again based on the higher number of 5 officers. Again, I'd rather give you a number that's too high than one that's too low, and let you look at a worst-case scenario.
We appreciate that.
If I could throw one more thing, I'm not really sure what kind of schedule they would be working. 5 folks or 4 folks, I'm pretty confident that it'd be, for the most part, one guy on duty at a time, where I'm saying you got 2.
Actually, the proposal calls for, if you go with the 5 deputy option, there would be 2 deputies during peak hours under the 5 deputy option. That's just that, basically 3 to 1. Further discussion from council?
And one thing, that we're looking at, and Rick had kind of pointed out, I don't know if he's still here, is we're all familiar with our police department. I think that's what our goal is, to keep our police department. That's why we hired Chief to come in, take an outside look at things, see if we can bring it back to next budget and straighten it out in an overall sense. But one thing I think that Sheriff Rodenberg had presented was, we were going to have officers here in the village. It's not like they're going to be passing by. So I think that it's going to be similar as to having our own officers. I don't think that it's going to be, that may have been what Rick was trying to point out, was feeling that the sheriffs would be just passing through, but this is to have the sheriffs here in the village, was the feeling that Sheriff Rodenberg gave me on that.
Discussion or conversation from council regarding where we are right now? Questions?
I think we have some time. I think Chief is, making good steps, and I think we should give him a chance to see what he can do with it. And but still, we owe it as a matter of due diligence to check out the sheriff's department. It's kind of our cards in our back pocket. But this, the way I feel about it is, I want to give the chief a chance to see what he can do, and but continue asking questions and preparing as well.
Just for purposes of working with an estimated number, I'm doing it. I know everybody else is doing it. Sitting here scratching down numbers and adding them.
Mayor,
Yes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. This is going to work perfectly then. He's going to have to change the tape because the tape's going to run out. I'd like to make the recommendation to council that take maybe a 5-minute recess. Everybody take a few minutes, run your numbers, and let's look at the apples to apples comparison that everybody's sort of here trying to pencil down and still engage in the conversation. Is council?
Yeah.
Well, let's do that. We'll take a short recess while he changes the tape, and we'll call back to order in a few minutes. Yeah, let me get the public in. We'll call this meeting back to order at 8:47 p.m. You need to do a roll call, Kevin.
And roll call. Mr. Thacker?
Here.
Mr. Rosser?
Here.
Mr. Follett? Here. Ms. Gerber?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
And Mayor Ellington.
I'm here.
We do have a full quorum still.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your patience. I just wanted to, I know that I was sitting here trying to scribble out numbers and still engage in the meeting, and I wanted to take a couple minutes to just scratch that down and get an idea where we were. Unfortunately, that it was still kind of confusing. A lot of noise and everything. It was still kind of confusing. But I'm going to ask Councilperson Gerber if she'll just share the numbers that we just came up with, and I want to put this disclaimer out there. As you were alluding to apples, 5 officers, 5 deputies. We didn't run it that way. We compared it to what the chief is proposing versus what the county is proposing. So, and I want to acknowledge that there's a difference in between 5 on the Amelia Police side. There's 5 full-time people, including the chief, plus 4 part-time staff. So you're talking about a staff of 10, including the clerk, versus 5 full-time sheriffs. Is that accurate?
Correct.
You want to?
Yeah, the total amount for the Claremont County Sheriff's Office would be $435,100. Again, that's 5 deputies. Now, for the Amelia, and it would be times 10 employees, like the mayor said, that includes our clerk, is $559,200.
So it's not apples to apples by any means, because you have more officers, so it's a value, it's a concept thing. Would I rather pay the additional $100,000 and have what I have now?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So, what else? That was the. All right, that's just enough rough numbers that we came up with, and there was some rounding. We rounded down on one. So just wanted to have a baseline. And we worked with the fiscal officer on the numbers, and I won't stand up in court and swear to him, but it's a rough estimate. So again, based on that knowledge, I would open the floor to council before we open the floor to the public for input. Council has any input before we move to public input? Now's the time. All right. That being said, this time I would open the floor to the public at this time. If you just step forward, introduce yourself, and state your business. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I'm a resident here in Amelia.
Yes, sir.
About 3 years. My name's Josh. I live in Don Ridge. One thing I would like to bring to everyone's mind, to bring this up is, if we take this contract with the sheriff's department, the supervisor there is going to report to the sheriff, whereas now our police officers report to a council, to the mayor.
No, that's not correct.
Is it still going to come here?
We'll still report.
So all the ordinances and everything and all that will be ran. All the ordinances that we have now will all be enforced.
They will report to whoever the mayor is. But their preference for enforcement is to enforce state codes rather than village ordinances. That's their preference.
And when you say preference, that's what's going to happen, or
That's what's going to happen. That's what they're going to do, because that's how their people are trained.
And then once again, because I have it, I've seen this happen. And I recommend you guys do this ride-alongs with the townships that have contracted out. And by all means, our department, I'm sure the chief will, when an officer needs assistance, he's going to send his officers out of the village to help other people when alarm drops and domestic violences. But ride along with these other officers before you make these decisions and see how often they leave that township to go on routine calls, if there is such thing called that. You know, they're still going to, you know, they still have, even though they're here, you can ride along with them. You're going to see them. They're going to leave the area. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to do it maliciously, but if there's a call, they're going to go to it. I mean, because they're going through their dispatch, their supervisors. I asked you guys.
As would our officers would be.
For the main ones, the domestic violence, the alarm drops, that require 2 officers. But ride with, I asked you guys as people to go ride with the township officers and actually see how often they leave the area. I'm not saying they're just going to fly through here like, you know, whatever, but they leave, you know, and I'm sure they're going to leave a lot more often than when there are officers, Amelia police officers. So I asked you guys to go do that as residents, you know, be educated about it.
Someone else? Rick?
Hi, Mayor. I'm going to make more of a statement than anything because my stuff's more about economics than anything. I've been in finance for a long time. I started looking at these numbers and I just kind of go, wow. You know, our average officer only makes $16.83 an hour. And with the bennies, you know, they don't make a whole lot. The average, they're showing a first-year officer with the Claremont County Sheriff's Office at $20 an hour. Now, granted, that's just a first-year officer. They said they're going to bring in an average of a third-year officer, senior officers, or more. You need to really look at these numbers totally different than what you're looking at because those are bare minimum numbers. Those minimum numbers are never going to come through. They never do. They never will. I had a nice talk with Chief Wallace outside earlier. I had a great talk with Chief Deputy Combs and Sheriff Rodenberg. My thought is, council brought in a new fiscal officer who apparently is doing a really good job for this community. You know, we need somebody like that to crunch numbers. You brought in Chief Wallace just literally a week ago. Let them do their jobs. Let these gentlemen help this village get back to where it should be. I myself am tired of the foreclosures around my house all the time. You know, I like the officers we have. I like the community the way it is. You know, look at Kobe. What does he do besides being an officer? Well, all these guys, they're out plowing the streets. You know, they do stuff that the sheriff's office is not going to do for us. These guys do a whole lot more for us, you know, than the sheriff's office is really going to do. So take a big look at the whole picture. I mean, think of, you know, council, you need to make the tough decisions here. You know, are we going to keep this village together or not? You know, I know this council is split on the people that want to let this village go or the ones that want to keep it. Some tough decisions need to be made. Some tough economic decisions need to be made. Let these gentlemen you hired in here do their jobs before you make these decisions. It wasn't fair, in my opinion, to Chief Wallace to come in here and have to speak to all you all after the sheriff and his chief deputy, you know, with just 1 week of tenure. That's not fair to anybody. You know, would you like it in your position? No, none of you would. Let these gentlemen do their job. You know, let's stick around. Let's wait a year or two. Let's see where it goes. We're really close to becoming a city with probably some more benefits coming to us. You know, let's make Amelia a better place to live and the place that we all want to be. I mean, I could sit there and just, you know, and hold on a second, Mayor. I just want to go over one other, a couple other things with you, you know, before I do it. And I'm just going to say a couple things I wrote down. You know, what's a third-year deputy make with Claremont County? What's a fifth? What's a 10th? You know, what's the average Claremont County deputy tenure? Who knows? You know, 12-hour shifts. You know, what about the drive time back and forth from the sheriff's office over to here? You know, who's covering during that time? The union contracts. What does that mean? You know, the biggest question to me was, and it came up earlier, and nobody knows the answer. What's the Union Township contract cost? Nobody even knows that.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, I thought. Okay, and I apologize. I thought.
The wrong people.
Okay, and I apologize for that. But you know, the fees for, you know, communication and whatnot. I mean, our officers have not had a raise since January of 2007. You know, would you want that job? I wouldn't. And
I already have that job.
well, that's not your full-time job, though, Mayor. And so that's a little bit different, you know. And you don't get paid dirt for what you're doing either. So I understand it. But they got to combine 76 years experience here. What's going to be the response time when we only have 5 deputies covering this area? That's what people need to think about. If you want the services, you need to think about it. The average response time now is probably 2 to 4 minutes. What's it going to go to at the sheriff's office with 1 deputy covering this place for 12 hours from end to end? What's it going to be? Where's that? When another area around here needs help, that guy's gone, that lady's gone, whoever it is. What's the response time going to be? I mean, we do need the services here, and I like the fact that that the sheriff made the point. So they really probably don't want this, but they do want to put it on the table and tell you guys what they can do. But think about the entry level person with them. With the bennies, it's making $67,000 a year on their computations. The highest number I heard here was $59,000 for our people.
Highest number was 61,000.
Okay, 61. So that's not much. But if the budget here is truly $581,000, and the budget last year was $587 we spent, or was it $587? Correct me if I'm wrong. We lost 2 sergeants. Let's say they made $60,000 a year in benefits. There's 120 gone. Where'd it go? Where is it? I mean, council needs to answer that question. Everybody here, where's the money? Now the budget's staying the same, but we lost 2 guys, and that's 120,000. Somebody needs to tell me and everybody here.
Well, they weren't gone the whole year.
No, but what I'm saying is, and if I heard Kevin correctly, he said the budget's coming in next year at 581. Was that correct?
Estimated cost at 581.
Okay. And last year, did we not spend 587?
I couldn't tell you, so I haven't looked at it.
Okay. So somebody needs to add these numbers up to me. To me, it's economics. It's pretty simple. Where is it? Our officers don't make a ton of money.
Well,
they really don't. And I'll tell you right now, they should be compensated better for the job they do in our community. But something's not adding up here. Council needs to take a hard look at the numbers. Let these gentlemen you hired in do the job you hired them into, and let's not make some rash decisions until we have that chance.
I want to say first, you're preaching to the choir.
I know I am.
Wait a minute. That's the reason why we went to the voters 2 times last year.
But Mayor, I might be only preaching to half the choir here.
Okay.
Maybe I want the whole choir.
We went to the voters 2 times last year for those very reasons that you just talked about, to get a raise for officers who haven't had a raise since 2007, as you alluded to. You indicated to give this a couple of years to stew. Let the fiscal officer do his job. Let the police chief do his job. Last week, the fiscal officer did his job and reported to council that by 2013 we'll be operating at a deficit. So to wait a couple of years is not a good idea.
Well, my point of that is, Mayor, these numbers from the sheriff's office are not going to be correct. They are based on a first-year officer. And I want everyone
No,
to... Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. They sure are.
Can you provide...
You need to look at it.
Greg, can you provide any factual basis on that, or is that just your opinion?
That's from actually talking to the sheriff and his chief deputy outside just now. And,
Yeah.
and what I understand in talking to them is that the number that you're looking at when you look at these numbers is based on a first-year officer's pay. And that's not going to be the case, because every officer that's going to be working over here is not going to be a first-year officer.
No, they said in the first year they're going to rotate in experienced officers, so you get them at that first-year rate.
And
While those officers are
all other
are still
contract
training
deputies
program.
are paid at 100% of their salary benefits by the village. Did everybody read the same thing I did?
Say it again.
It says right on here that on what they proposed, all other contract deputies are paid at 100% of their salary/benefits by the village.
So I don't understand. What
Deputies assigned to patrol Amelia will be billed at the rate of a third-year deputy. The third-year salary rate is for the first deputy only. All other contract deputies are paid at 100% of their salary/benefits by the village.
Yeah, how is that? I mean,
You
got 100% of an officer.
But it's a big difference because
The reason
a fifth year, a 7th year, and a 10th year guy makes a whole lot more than a 3rd year person. I mean,
Well,
it's.
They break it down.
I mean, I'm not. I'm a Tea Party guy. Too. I've been taxed enough already, but you know what? If it takes a little bit more money to take care of our officers and keep this village intact, maybe this council needs to make the decision to put this on the ballot one more time, and let's take a look at it.
Well, that's how this discussion started. Because I came to council and said,
I know.
we've done 2 levies, it hasn't worked out, nothing's changed, and both times levies were failed.
And I know you did, Mary. But my biggest thing is here, I want people to know that I think the sheriff's proposal is bare minimum numbers. It's not going to be there. It really isn't. You know, you can say, Ms. Gerber can say all day long that it's 435 for 5 deputies.
Okay, hold on. Miss Gerber just relayed what
Well,
we came up with. That wasn't my figures. We're doing that
I'm
here.
not holding you to that. I'm just using it. I'm just throwing the number out.
But any contract negotiations will have a hard number in there per year.
Well, first off, this is a proposal. It's not a contract.
That's right.
And
That's what I'm saying. There's been no negotiation.
And this is just a discussion.
And I know this is just discussion, and that's why I wanted to throw that out to everybody, that I think these numbers are going to end up coming in much higher than they are. And I think with what Chief Wallace wants to do, and I think with what our fiscal officer wants to do, is I think they will find ways to reduce the other number for us. That's my point. I think these numbers are going to get a whole lot closer as opposed to being spread farther.
Well, that's what we want to see, you know.
And I understand it. I just want to make sure everybody understood that, and I want to be clear on it. I'm not, I want it to be fair, but people need to know these guys do a lot more, for our area. They live here for the most part, or close to the area. I mean, they do different things for us. 5 outside deputies coming in here, it's not going to be the same for us. And I don't.
I've been saying that all along.
And I understand.
To an empty room.
I understand. Mayor, I understand it. Mayor and I have talked too. We're neighbors, and we get along fine. Don't anybody here think we don't? I just want everybody to understand. Looking at this from a layman's point of view and the outside point of view, it's not going to come in like that.
Well, I'm just going to say this. If everybody here is in favor of maintaining the Amelia Police Department, I couldn't possibly be happier. Okay? I couldn't possibly be happier. But we were clobbered over the head over the last couple of years about fiscal responsibility, and that's what this is. This is transparency. This is an attempt at fiscal responsibility, and this is an open dialogue with regard to that. So it's not us and them, us against them thing.
And Mayor, I understand.
It's a discussion of that.
And I'll finish it with one last point. When I see some of these numbers that the fiscal officer did, and it comes in, for 4 full-time and 2 part-time, which basically comes to 6 full-time, and showing 2 new cruisers at $60,000 a year, we get 365 on this number. How do we get to 581?
Well, you have fuel at $4 a gallon.
No, that's added in. I mean, that's in some of these numbers. I do, and I know this is just very, very.
No. Look, right here, the fuel is
unfortunately
below here.
Unfortunately, I'm not looking at the same one you are, but I have another one here that does have fuel in here at approximately 9,600 a year.
Yeah, it calls for 20,000.
Okay. Well, I didn't do this. I didn't put this together. One of you all did. So it wasn't me. It's got 2 cruisers.
You want to borrow?
It wasn't.
You want to borrow my sheet so you can look at the same
But
thing?
this just shows,
Yeah.
that, first year startup cost. Estimated first year cost, 365. With these piddly wages that we pay our officers. And this could be easily 110 higher with the chiefs and jurors. Wait, I understand that. So it could easily go up to, 485, but, where's the other 100 plus? I mean, I'm sorry, but this includes 2 automobiles at, 30,000 each.
Right.
I mean, somebody needs to put a hard pencil to the paper and start some numbers, and which is exactly what you are doing, and that's why this meeting's here, and I know that's what's happening, but it needs to take place.
That's why we're here, and that's why you're here.
That's right.
That's why it's been all over the television, all over the newspaper, so that you would be here. I'm sorry.
I'm Debbie Schwartz, and I live in the village. I live back in Quail Creek. And first of all, I just want to say that I certainly hope that we can figure this out to keep our police officers, because we have the best that there are. And I very much am grateful and appreciative of everything they do in Quail Creek. And I would be very sorry to see them go. That being said, I know I don't attend every meeting, Sometimes I'm afraid I shouldn't be here because sometimes I open my mouth and I know that upsets people on council, so I've tried to stay away. However, when I saw the limited promotion of the levy, and I voted for it, but it was about Kevlar vest and vehicles and giving them a raise and those kind of things. And I was there and I was ready to support it, and our whole family did. There was nothing that I saw. I mean, I didn't see 3 news channels and everybody else coming and saying, if you don't pass this, we're going to the sheriff's for our thing. I think if you came in, obviously you've gotten some smart people that are going to start working on the fiscal thing. Now, my fear is if they've only got until the end of September to figure it out, that doesn't even give you an opportunity to promote it and put it on the ballot one last time, showing you've done your due diligence, showing you've crunched your numbers, getting out the word that this isn't just about Kevlar vests and raises, but it's about whether we have a police department or we don't have a police department. I would just ask for you to consider having a little extra time so they can do their job. What I've heard tonight is impressive more than I've ever heard in anything we've ever had. And I just don't want them to run out of time before September 30th. Like, he was saying, well, by the end of September, that doesn't give you an opportunity to put it back on the ballot again. And that scares me.
Yeah, there's no hard and fast deadline at which time would have, where the decision has to be made. What he's saying, in order to be up and running by January 1, September. That's what he's saying. So there's no hard and fast deadline when council has to make a decision.
But I think if there was a better public campaign and a better education,
and
I'll volunteer to be on the committee.
And that's what needs to happen. We provided everything during the last 2 levies, everything that we were legally permissible, that was legally permissible to provide, to promote. In fact, we had a lengthy discussion, and there was an article in the newspaper about the fact that we wanted to do a mailer to send to the residents to try to promote the levy. But the Ohio Revised Code limits our ability to do that. We cannot tell you, we cannot promote, vote yes, vote no. We can only provide the facts.
What you just said would be illegal. You can't say, we vote for this, or we're going to take away your place to vote.
We did everything that was legally permissible to do. And we actually had a long debate in council chambers because council wanted to do that.
Are there smart political people somewhere from other places that have dealt with this before that know the ways that you can legally not violate anything? But
Political Action Committee.
Has to be a political action committee of citizens. This is not something we don't know how to do. We just cannot do the political action committee. It's not permitted.
No, but what you can do is you can put a deadline on it, a year or so, and say, hey, we won't make a decision until after this time. You can do that.
That doesn't address what she's saying.
Well, sure it does. It absolutely addresses it because
Well,
it gives
no hard and fast deadline.
right. But what it does, it gives them an opportunity to do their jobs, what they're here for, and try to make it better with the new people you hired in. So that essentially does that. If you say, hey, look, we're going to sit back and I know we're running out of money. I'm the first to admit, but it does. But it right, and I know, and I understand, and I know we don't start with much money each year, but it does give a couple of smart individuals you guys hired in here time to do their job.
right, and I'm concerned that, and I'm not saying that $129,000 is a little bit of money. Please, I am not misspeaking that at all. But I agree that once they crunch their numbers and get the real number, and you sit down and negotiate with the sheriffs, and then you get their real number, I don't think you're going to be that far apart.
The numbers that we have are the real numbers. That would be contractual. That would be in the contract.
Right.
You know,
But
if they deviate from that, then we mediate or litigate to get it where it needs to be, just like we did with Union Township. If they're not in compliance with the letter of the contract, that's what happens.
And, there's so much you can do as a citizen. You sound like you have a lot of compassion for it. Start knocking on doors, talking to people. You can do that as a resident. And like I said, we can only provide you the facts. And we can give you all the facts you need, and then hopefully you could get citizens together to go out and do the door-to-door and the talking.
Here's the facts. I'm going to show you a real quick fact. On the numbers that they provided, it shows a first-year entry-level officer at $72,200 a year. It shows that after the second year, which we would consider, I guess, a third-year officer, at $86,318, which is roughly 20% more. So if we just go with a little bit of economics once again and say, okay, they're going to have at least a third-year officer in here, then we go with the $86,000 figure, not the first one. We only go with the first number for the very first officer. That's when they're split in half. The other ones are going to be at this higher number. So you better look at your numbers that you threw out there and looked at and say, hey, we better add 20% to that across the board right away. So at 435, that's going to add 87,000. That right there is, coming in at what, 522.
I don't think there's anybody up here that questions the numbers, but the numbers are always going
But
to change.
what
Till
that
you
says
sit down
is
and
exactly
do
what you
a
said.
hard,
The
fast
gap's a whole lot
contract.
gap's a whole lot closer than you guys are saying. I don't want anybody here to be deceived, thinking that the sheriff's office is going to be a whole lot cheaper.
I don't
We're
think
not
anybody
deceiving
here.
anybody. We're going by the
It's not
proposal
even
that
apples
was
and
given
apples.
to us. That's what we had.
But you're not sitting out here listening. You're just saying, that's the way I heard it. How many other people heard it the way I heard it? I bet a lot of them did. I mean, when you see these numbers, they say 559.2 versus 435, they go, geez, we need to save money. I firmly believe that. But, that's 164,000. That's what I heard.
Yeah, but then you didn't listen to the entire statement, which was, this is for 10 people and this is for 5 people.
No, I heard that exactly.
Okay, well, you forgot.
I
to
heard that
mention.
exactly, and that right there.
That's twice as much. So that's giving everybody in this room that consideration when they're making that decision.
That right there is 100 and basically, that's 120. That's 124,000 right there. Now I told you if we take the 5 deputies and figure that that's probably going to be close to 20% higher, that's 86,000 right there. Don't think it's not going to be. Because it is. Because if you read their proposal, and I know it's not a contract, it's just a proposal, but it says they're going to be paid. They're going to be after the first. They're going to be paid at the average of a third-year deputy, but they're also going to be paid at whatever they make. I mean, I read it straight from their proposal. I'll read it again. Deputies assigned to patrol committee will be billed at the rate of a third-year deputy, which is the $86,000 number. The third-year salary rate is for the first-year deputy only. All other contract deputies are paid at 100% of their salary benefits by the village. So if you've got guys in here that got 10 years experience in the first year, that's what you're paying them at. You're paying them at their 10-year salary. That's going to be a lot more than that. I sat outside and asked them, but I wanted to clarify that to make sure that was correct. And they said, you can call us and do whatnot. But from what I understand, and I'm just one person, but from what I understand, it's going to be a lot more expensive than what we're looking at here.
And that's when you'd walk away and say, okay, we're not in.
I got a quick question for Kevin, if I can, and I'll take a whack at it. Hey, Kevin, with this number, we see estimated revenues in 2012 for our police department that's coming in from our levy. Are we projecting that's going to go up, down, stay flat? Where's that number going?
It all depends on what the Claremont County auditor comes back with for the appraisal. I don't know what the cycle is for Claremont County. My guess is that number is going to be fairly close.
So it's going to stay pretty flat.
Yeah.
Maybe
Last
slightly
year,
down.
budget amounts, the only two revenue sources for the police district are the real estate, and they haven't marked property tax allocation, which is all the rollback monies, the make whole monies. There's a special name for it, but we always just call it the make whole monies because of the loss of personal property, the loss of public utility, and all that. The public utility and personal property monies, based on the current state budget, will probably disappear in 2013. They're currently scheduled to end in 2019. The proposal I saw, 2013 will be the last year. That would leave just basically the property tax.
Okay.
And-
I missed it if you said it. How much of the budget was that?
The,
Because I don't have, or maybe I do, and I just don't have it in front of me to see the number.
the property tax allocation, the county auditor told us to estimate $79,000 in that, $531,000 on the real estate,
Okay.
which is
Looking at
roughly a $30,000 increase from the year before. I don't see a $30,000 increase coming in 12.
No. So
If
we'll-
anything, it'll be flat or 5 to 10,000 less, depending on what the state budget does.
So we're still going to be in the 6,000 to 615,000.
Right.
That's all I was kind of looking for, because, what I was going to say is I feel a lot of what you're saying. I think there are a lot of hidden costs in that sheriff's contract. We understand that. I don't think there's anybody in here who's, it's just my thoughts on the subject.
I gotta object to calling things hidden costs, because that makes it look like the sheriff did something. This contract has the numbers that they propose to provide service for those years. Now, it's 2012, 13, and 14. And obviously, a contract would have those specifically spelled out. So I just want to say very clearly, there's nothing in here that's hidden, there's nothing in here
How about they use the word
dupe anyone.
unexpected?
I don't think there's going to be anything unexpected, and certainly there wouldn't be a contract.
Well, we talked about the 20,000 for fuel. We
Yeah,
talked
I
about
mean,
the
that stuff's been-
7,400 for debt service.
Well, but they list all that. I mean,
And we added all that.
I just,
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah, we
That
added
gets
all
added to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me take a whole nother approach here. My personal 2 cents on here, I don't see a huge cost savings. I haven't seen it yet. I've said it before. I don't see a huge cost benefit I don't see how we're going to save a lot of money going with the sheriff. So at least as far as I'm concerned, I don't see us saving a ton of money by switching to sheriff's service. As far as getting, more revenue for our cops, I feel like I'm a little outnumbered there, but I'm looking at the numbers he already got in front of me, and he's already said from the plan we were talking before, where we're in the red and our police department's just not going to survive. The sheet sitting in front of me says we're $33,000, almost $34,000 in the black. All of a sudden, so I'm sitting there when we're talking about getting more money. I'm seeing the money's there to give our officers raises, which is why I'm so excited to have a new perspective on this. And I don't think I'm alone in that up here, but I can only speak for myself.
The only thing on that, Chuck, and I agree with everything you just said, and really happy to see that there's we'd be in the black with $33,000 to the good, and the opportunity to provide raises for our officers who very much deserve them. What this doesn't factor in is the unexpected. An officer who, and we've just experienced it for somebody's on sick leave for an extended period of time. It can happen to any person any day. Doesn't factor that, and that's a number that you can't quantify. So $33,000 is that's probably as big a fund balance as we've ever had going into a new year. Okay, I don't think that we've ever shown that kind of a fund balance for the police department going into a new year. Okay, so I see that as really a positive direction, but I would just emphasize that it's projected. It hasn't happened yet.
You're right, but I mean,
That's all I want to say.
No, like from my perspective, like what I'm saying is, I'm sitting here and we're talking about give the police need more money. When we go from going we're flat broke and we're going to have to be taking out loans to pay people or whatever, borrowing from the general fund to pay police officers. We've got 2 sergeants. We're going to have 2 police officers on duty. I mean, I'm seeing money in here where there's possibility for raises. I mean, I think that we're looking pretty good. So if anybody out there is worried about how we're looking, I think things are looking pretty good.
Hey Chuck, an argument on your behalf too, in reference to what you said. You're right, this hadn't come in yet, but the expenses haven't gone out yet either, other than the contract part. So, that's what the chief's talking about cutting. This officer talked about cutting, so it goes both ways.
Hence the word projected.
Planning document.
Say it again.
Planning document.
I like that. That's a good.
Other community input? Yeah.
Sean, I live in Quail Creek also. I don't know if the cost of this cost was actually involved in the numbers, but, the sheriff's department uses computers in their cruisers. We do not. and there isn't a significant cost
So there's,
to
it's
this.
about
particular-
$6,000 per car.
Is that included in their cost for
No,
the
that would
5
be-
cruisers?
That would be out front expenses.
Okay, and then I know our officers are also first responders that use AED units. I don't know if they're trained first responders either.
No, sir,
I don't know if they were.
I don't think they are.
I would have figured they would have mentioned that if they were.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if the one life is saved in 4 years, that's huge.
Absolutely.
So I don't believe, because I know some sheriffs, I don't believe they carry AEDs in their car and are trained first responders.
Yeah.
There's another training cost that goes along with all of those officers that are going to be trained for Amelia. And also the issue with comm center jumping back and forth. You know, if I call 911 for my house, I get Union. If I need an officer now, they're going to have to dispatch from Union to Claremont. And I know they don't get along, so how long is that going to take before I finally get started?
Yeah, the county will not dispatch to anybody but their own comm center. So, I mean, that's a major, in
Yeah.
my opinion, the biggest hurdle.
That's
Forget
gonna
about the
kill
dollars,
response
forget-
time.
You can talk about dollars all day long, but if I can't get a squad car or an ambulance to where it needs to be
Exactly.
quickly, then there's no dollar amount that matters to me. That's the single biggest hurdle.
And that's a huge, I mean, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to go from one comm to the next. And how long is that transition going to take
You know,
before you
only
get
thing
a
that
right
would have to
officer?
happen is, the only thing that could happen was the elimination of the Union Township contract. Under that, you know, that's the only way.
And then how much would it cost to break that union contract?
No, you don't know
Union
your
township
contract.
contract
Right? They want to give away $300,000 a year? No.
So there's obviously money.
$300,000 a year to save $30,000.
There's obviously money, fees, contractual issues that will come into play there. But those were my big things with the cost of computers. If you're talking $6,000 to $7,000 per car times 5 cars, that's going to add to add that also. Plus the 2 safety issues.
Yeah, those are all things that were included in council's packets last week, the things that you just mentioned, especially computers.
Except for the first responders.
First responder is a good thing.
It's important.
Yeah.
Other community input?
I got a question. Kobe Merle, 4 Southbridge. My question is, I heard the sheriff, chief deputy, sit up here in this chair right here. He said that we didn't have to paint the police cars to match the sheriff's standards. The Buckeye Sheriff's Association, which is the organization that governs, dictates the sheriff's uniform rules and regulations. It says basically, as a former deputy sheriff myself of a large sheriff's office in the tri-state area in Ohio, we wore rockers on our uniforms describing what division we were in. With that being said, the Buckeye Sheriff's Association fined that agency a very significant amount of money per year for every time they were in violation of that uniform contract because of those rockers on that shoulder patch. If you look at their shoulder patches by the star, there is the copyright seal. That uniform is copyrighted. So if the Claremont County Sheriff's Department, here saying the chief deputy sitting in this chair, says that we can go ahead and put B-stripe markings, which is the nickname for the sheriff markings, on a blue police car and not be in violation of the Buckeye Sheriff's Association rules and regulations and also the Ohio Revised Code, then that would be nonsense, because then there would be a fine assessed to them by the Buckeye Sheriff's Association. My question is to this council, and I don't know if you're going to have to answer for it. If they're fined because they got blue police cars with the B-stripe markings on it, who's going to pay that fine? Is it going to be the Amelia Village, or is it going to be the sheriff's office? Because they're ultimately the ones who are responsible for that uniform and how that uniform is displayed in public. The reason why they got very strict rules for these uniform markings is if there's a prison break or a prison riot out in Columbus, they can send deputies from Claremont County, from Hamilton County, Warren County to go up there to handle that riot. If there's a natural disaster, a tornado, or an earthquake or something in Columbus, the mayor of Columbus can call adjacent county sheriff's offices and have those deputies from the adjacent counties to respond to that area to patrol and to provide emergency services during those tornadoes and what have you. That's why they have the uniform standards. So with that being, what I'm getting at, if the fine is assessed by the Buckeye Sheriff's Association, who's going to pay that? Because I know that my past employer, they paid a significant amount of money for these fines just for the simple fact they had rockers on their shoulder patches that said court services, patrol, or corrections. And that got him in a whole lot of trouble, and he pays that fine every year. And that's something that we need to be addressed. Or is the village prepared to pay that fine? Because we're going to have blue police cars, because we're not going to follow the rules and regulations set forth by the Buckeye Sheriff's Association.
Mayor, can I clarify what
Yeah, I
Kobe's
don't-
saying?
yeah.
Okay. I understand what Kobe's saying, just to put it in a more clear picture. Again, going back to years and years ago, the sheriff's department had a different uniform, specifically the shoulder patches. They were like a giant triangle. And somebody decided somewhere that that wasn't good enough, so they changed to the current patch. Logistically and expensively, they just couldn't say on such and such a date, that's out, this is in. Make it happen. There was a certain wear-in date where at some point in time you start wearing the new patch, but the old patch is still good. Once it climbs into that next date, the old patch is no longer authorized. Same thing Chief Deputy Combs was saying about the cars. Same thing what the Marine Corps did. The Marine Corps put me through the expense of 3 different major changes of uniforms, but we always had beginning dates and ending dates, and dates in between both were acceptable. So, you know, as long as they meet that rotation period, I think they would be okay. That's just me trying to clarify that. Okay?
Thanks, Cody. Other community input? John? Yes, ma'am.
This is my first time coming in, and I just moved in here about a month and a half. I run my own business. A lot I heard Chief say, I make a profit. A lot that he said up there is the way I run my business. You know, I feel like we should give him a chance. You know, just the little minute thing like changing your printer. The old saying, you rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, I say give him a chance. You know, and I've seen Officer Lovins, I don't know how many, I live in Quail Creek, how many times patrol my street. That's not going to happen with the deputies. I've lived in the tri-state. I'm 58 years old. Look at how many crime rates is in your city. Your city of Cincinnati, shootings every day. Is our crime rate going to go up?
Already has.
I mean, like I said, I run my business the same presentation that he put up there. I make a profit every month. And I said, I've seen her patrol our street I don't know how many times. We're not going to get that from the deputies. We're not going to get that. It's going to be just like the city of Cincinnati. I say give them a chance.
Thank you. Other input this evening?
Something was mentioned earlier about peak hours. What is the peak hours? Is there going to be 2 officers?
Well,
officers
that would
or
be
peak
determined
hours, or-
by the command staff, the times when the most calls for service are received.
And who determines this? That's
Command staff, like the chief of police, who would look at the statistics and say, statistically between whatever, 2 and 10, that's our strongest call volume. So that's the time we need to be extra heavily staffed. That's a determination.
Generally speaking, and to clarify that a little bit more, it's normally 3 p to 11. Most people are out of work, at home, shopping or something like that, and they haven't gone to bed yet. So that's normally your peak thing. That's where most traffic and people just out being people.
So they were talking about having 2 officers on during peak time?
If you go with the
Me
5
or
deputy
them?
option.
Sheriffs.
I believe that's what they were talking, where I'm suggesting.
We are 2
I
full
can
and
do
1
2.
part.
Well, I can do 2 officers on deck.
He's proposing 2 officers.
24.
Actually, 24/7, correct?
Yeah, every day of the week. So,
Yeah.
That sounds like better coverage.
Yep.
Well, I have another question with the contract. Should the village contract with the sheriff's office, and they're not on, and there's no deputies on duty to be contracted, because they just said that there will not be 24/7 coverage. The county sometimes runs with 3 deputies, a north car, a south car, and a supervisor. If there's no officer on duty that's contracted out to Amelia, and there's no other contract car on either, then you're going to look at running and getting coverage from either the south car or a supervisor So you're gonna have to expect extreme long response times, especially if there's a two-man call in the northern part of Claremont County. And I think that needs to be considered by council also, because if you run a minimum of a three cars for the whole entire county, and which includes their contract areas. So when they don't have contract cars on, it goes to the general road deputies, and then that's a minimum standard of 3, which is 1 supervisor and a working south car.
All right, let's just stay with us.
Yeah, because that's not right.
I'm hungry.
Wrong.
Just
Wrong.
saying. I have a question.
Wrong.
My name is Mitch Mason, and I live in Amelia Park.
Yes,
Is our council all together on trying to make our police department stay as one in our community?
I can only speak for myself. They're all perfectly capable of speaking on their own behalf. I'm personally in favor of maintaining the Amelia Police Department, providing the highest level of service possible to our citizens. At the same time, when you're sitting in this chair, you have an obligation to look at all the financial ramifications. And it's just a matter of due diligence.
Can we take a vote? Can we ask that question as residents?
You can ask any council person anything you want.
I mean, are you for keeping the
That's
village?
first choice, yes.
You?
My first choice would be keep them. I think they're great guys. I think they do a good job, but I think overall, to the whole community, we owe everybody, the looking at the numbers. Because if the money's not here and we don't have it, then we've got to find it. So then that's when we go to the voters and ask them, go out, vote, bring in the money. If they don't bring in the money, we don't have enough money to operate it, then we have to look elsewhere. But I think they're a great bunch of guys, and I don't want to lose them. But we've got to look at the long-term money.
How about you?
I agree.
How about you, sir?
You know where I stand. I talked to you a while
Yes,
ago.
I do. Very
I'm
good.
for it.
He's with us.
I agree with keeping Amelia Police, but the reason this got brought up initially, former police chief brought it to our attention that there could possibly we need more revenue. So we had to venture out and look at other options, before bringing it to the taxpayers and say we're going to need additional money. So that's why we explored this.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of already know where I lean on that. Yeah, but I do want to say one more bit. You got to remember too. Literally, when we all walked in here and sat down, this is the first time we've seen this presentation. So this is the news to us as it is to you. So we've got to, and I can understand why people would want to wait, to look over the numbers. And so, I can understand that. So, that's, if there's any kind of delay or sense any kind of hesitation from us, I'm sure that's what a lot of it is about.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Our new chief says we're going to have 33,000 below budget. We'll be in the black cap, and we're looking at a difference of maybe 100,000. So we're really looking at a difference of maybe 70,000 with less officers, less coverage. The personal relationships that I have with Ms. Lovins and Toby and the new officer that moved down the street from me, you know what I mean? They know my family. They drive by the road. I go on vacation. I do a little paperwork, and my house has never been broken into, because they've checked on it, I assume. There's a lot of advantages to keeping what we have, in my opinion. We got a new chief, and he's saying we're going to be okay, possibly. Things stay the same and no big disasters. And then our old chief is saying we need more money. Let's.
Well, let me follow back up on that. First of all, you're singing the same song I've been singing for a long time.
I am.
Okay. For all the way back since 2008. In 2008, in my initial meeting with the former police chief, we talked about what his needs were going forward. Now, understand this meeting. Here's a guy who was elected to a position by an overwhelming margin of 3 votes. Okay? Okay. Now, that doesn't make me an expert in being a mayor or a police officer, or it doesn't make me an expert in anything. It just means that I either got the short straw or the long straw. Okay? And so I'm the guy. And so I sit down in the office with the police chief, and he's got 30-plus years experience in police business. And I say to him, tell me about your needs. Tell me what we need to look at for the future. In 2008, I received from our chief a written document that, based on his philosophy for providing police protection to a community of our size, and in compliance with certain organizations that he believed that we needed to be staffed at 2 officers per shift, 24/7. Okay, and I felt like it was an officer safety and public safety risk. Before we got the opportunity to really act or really look into that, we were in early 2008 began the discussion on the earnings tax, which launched us into all that came with that, and then the dissolve Amelia phase. And some of those people who wanted to dissolve Amelia and get rid of the police department then are here tonight in support of the police department. So we've come,
I need an excuse for a minute.
Yeah, no problem. So the point there is, hopefully that means we've come a long way. Hopefully that means we've come a long way in rebuilding some bridges. Now that being said, years pass by, we're examining our budgets, looking at why we're constantly dipping into, I think it's only been for the last couple of years, since 2009, I think. I think 2009 is the first time we ever had a year. Well, I won't say ever, because that would be too broad, but maybe for the last 10 years, where we didn't dip into the general fund, where they didn't dip into the general fund to support police services. Okay. Going forward, 2010, in discussion with the police chief, same discussion. What do we need going forward? We need another, I get the same discussion, I get the same letter, same memo. Therefore, upon the chief's recommendation, his advice to council listened to his words, put 2 levies on the ballot. Both levies were defeated. I think neither was like a colossal defeat, but nonetheless they were defeated. And
one of them pass?
Oh, well,
yeah, the first time.
Yeah,
We got one, and the second one failed.
And it generated, it was 3 levies. You're right. It generated $27,000, and it was. And after the first levy, council thought, well, it was. I'm going to speak on their behalf now, and say that they thought it was kind of confusing by putting out a 7 and a 10. And the average citizen thinks, well, we voted to pass that levy, and you did. And it generated $27,000 when what we were looking for was $170,000. Now that doesn't make it anybody's fault, but math is math. So, council goes to the voters. Voters decline. The economy is what the economy is. It's a Tea Party economy. Nobody wants to. I don't think anybody wants to pay more taxes. I don't. And so, what council is doing right now is the very same thing that council was doing in 2008, which is exploring all options for the best way to provide the highest level of service to the village residents. And for my personal opinion, is to maintain our police department. That being said, by a majority vote, whether how big the margin was or not, the word I hear from the citizens via the vote is we don't want to pay any new taxes. And I'm looking at a community has grown 75%, 74.5% in 10 years. Calls for services have increased. I can't remember what the numbers are, but it's a big margin. So all this council is doing, and this is the very first step, although this has been discussed lightly previous to tonight, is a first step in identifying where we go from here. And it's a great thing that everybody's here, because this is exactly what we want at every meeting. Is the council needs input from the community. Otherwise, and that's why I put surveys on the website all the time. I want to know what the community thinks. I don't know how to make recommendations to the council people. The council doesn't know how to govern if they don't know what you think. If they don't know what your opinion is, their hands are sort of tied.
Hey, Mayor, can I finish with one thing? And
No, not right now. I'm talking to this man.
Okay.
I got one thing to say. You know what I remember last about, do you know what I remember about the levies? The last one passed. And I think, well, where the hell's the money? Then you tell me we generated $27,000. And you mentioned, Ms. Abrams, that your hands are tied to letting the public know this. I mean,
Well,
No, she can't.
we can't, we can give people facts
But I mean,
all
you
day.
can't petition-
We can't
we can't
tell
promote.
people how to vote, we can't
Yeah.
promote.
I
Because,
mean, 'cause that's what I know. The levy passed, and I'm thinking, I did vote because of the because of the police officers that I know, you know, and some of their families, different things, and the people, you know, the service they provide to me, you know.
Right.
And that's what I remember.
And the bottom line is what council's responding to, and by the research, is the voices that we've heard, which was at the polls. And that was, no, they don't want an increase in taxes.
I'll tell you this again. People that I've talked to, we just passed the levy. What the hell? Where's the money?
Exactly. And it was in the newspaper. I mean, it told people how much was generated.
It was tiny.
Okay, well.
No, that's what it was a lot, he said up to 177 was tiny. That's not what got passed. The small levy got passed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right,
Small levy got
but he
passed.
said, where do I go? That's not much money.
Right,
But
exactly.
I want to finish one thing, and I'll shut up. I want to give credit to council. Let's just give a hypothetical example out here. Let's say that we just got rid of a chief that didn't really want to work. But now we got a chief in here that's willing to work for us. Let's give him time and give him some credit.
Mayor, one thing I got to clear up while we're sitting here, and not to bust anybody's bubble, he's an interim chief. He's not been hired by us as far as a full-time chief. So just want to let everybody know that we have applications for a new police chief. Once we get through this, of what we're going through now, then we will have to look at those applicants. So
Well, he's doing a hell of a job as an intern.
I think he's a great guy.
Well,
I like him a whole lot, but I just want those facts to be known that we do have applicants we did put out, and he is an interim chief.
Well, he's already saved us possibly $33,000. I mean, you know, one guy's saying we need more money, and this guy's saying we got some. I mean, you got to give him credit, but he might be up here with a noose around his neck in a year too. You know what I'm saying? What, you want 100 grand? You just told us we got 33. You know, so.
Well, I mean, you got to give it's the rough numbers, and it's
Yeah.
funny that you brought up that number of how much below the average general was 27. So you compare that to the number I got here, and it's almost a wash.
Yeah.
So you asked where your levy is, there it is. So it did do us some good. It did do what I know the people out there voted it to do. Because I mean, you know, I look at that number, and it's the first thought that pops into my head is raises, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
the first thing that pops in my head is carry over to 2012
Well, okay.
so people get paid.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I'm really
That
sorry,
says,
but
that says how much we've got left, and that
But-
doesn't say, and understand the logistics of it. And this is what, I mean, you couldn't understand the logistics of it if you don't know. But we don't get our revenue for the new year until what?
January tax bills, or December, I'm not sure when Claremont does theirs. If you're lucky, you'll get the money in mid to late February.
Okay.